Yeah, I want to get started for sure. I'm going to just be presenting each of these four wonderful people. The first person we'll be hearing from is Candace, and yeah, you can clap. This is a wedding. Candace Hansen is a drummer, writer, zinester, organizer, rabble-rouser, and non-traditional scholar from Garden Grove, California, currently living in Los Angeles. Currently, Candace plays with Jan, Alice Bag, and Dimmer, and is working on a PhD at UCLA, focusing on music as a source of power and community building in underground communities, where she also is a teaching assistant in musicology, LGBTQ, and gender studies. Yes. It's all rooting for you, okay? When not making sad poetry scenes or playing shows or drinking sparkling water or hanging out with her grandma, Candace is probably writing about someone who inspires her for publication or for lectures or just to share with friends who she is also constantly inspired by. And here we go. Candace is also my friend. So yeah, one more time.
Can you hear me? Wow. Thank you, Rita. Oh my God. Well, wow, so many people here. Hello. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Can everyone in the back hear? Can you hear? Raise your hand.
I'm also really fucking loud, so I might be last night. So I was bored for this moment. Let me turn on my timer, so I want to be respectful of time.
Oh, I'm also there. I'm with you.
Oh, you're there with me?
I'm there, don't worry.
Oh, you're the best. You are an angel. Okay, you time me.
Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah, I'm so honored to be here, so excited to be a part of this panel. So happy to be here along with Beatrice, Daisy, and Sophia, and of course everybody a part of the zine community. It's been like a huge source of like empowerment for me as like a creative person, and it's just really incredible to be here. So I want to start two things. One, I want to acknowledge that I'm having anxiety about this, of trying to embody all of my disjointed worlds of being like a musician, but also like a fucking academic by accident, essentially, because I'm trying to buy my mom a house. And so, you know, you learn the ways to communicate. And so I've been teaching a lot, which is like, you know, this, and then being like, oh, you know, but then also I'm like a drummer. And so like, I'm gonna probably be a little erratic, and if it doesn't make sense, just tell CJ to raise her rain slicker in the air, and I'll slow down. So I have a tendency to just be the most, and I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm letting you know where I'm at. I'm the most, and I'm grateful for your patience. So yeah, so I want to start by just saying that I think that cheering for people and cheering for the things that I love and the things that inspire me has the potential to be a political act, and it has the potential to be a utopian form of world making. Has anybody ever heard of this term before, utopian world making? Ray, hell yeah, Ray. I feel like I'm at work right now, hello. You did the reading, Munoz. What does it mean to you, Ray, to talk about like a utopian world making?
Well, from what I've heard, it's basically just where everyone's happy, I guess.
Yeah, like a future where everyone is happy, right? And that happiness could stand for a lot of things. A place where we're supported, a place where justice is the lay of the law, a place where we're acknowledging the wrongs that have happened, a place where we're acknowledging the ways in which we have failed and we can move together to create a better world, right? And a utopian world-making act, through kind of being a fan of other people, is to also recognize that, like, hey, we are all doing beautiful creative work, and there's no scarcity that like actually exists, right? Like I think a lot of us, especially queer people or people who come from different kinds of communities that are marginalized in different ways, are taught there can only be one, right? And that's not fucking true, right? That is just the fucking hierarchy of capitalism telling you that there's a limitation to your greatness, because that's how they keep us under control and keep us from building the better world that would put those old monsters out of fucking business, right? And so to imagine that everyone is making beautiful art, and I'm making beautiful art, and we're all doing this together and creating the worlds that we want to exist through the kind of mediums that we love, is actually a creative tool that is radical, right? That has the power to change shit. That is a political act. To say, I'm a fucking fan of your band, I'm a fan of your organization, I'm a fan of your zines, is to say I fucking see you, right? And when you're unseen, that is insane, right? There's nothing in this world that's like, feels like being seen. So I made this zine. This is my LA Zine Fest thing. I just wanted to plug it really quick. Inspired by Rhea asking me to be on this panel. And yeah, so this is from my, this is a collage that I made about dykes. And you know, people don't really like dykes. People don't like us. And so I just wrote this poem just thinking about like how visible dykes made me feel less alone in this world, right? And so like, anyways, yeah, so that just thinking about the people that you're fans of and thinking about why can actually make you think about what is it within you that isolates you from others, right? So there's a lot at stake in being a fan. So a little bit about me. So this is my narcissistic about me page. So yeah. So this is my first academic professional headshot. And I have made sure to wear my fatty cakes and puff pastries pinned in it because if UCLA is going to fucking capitalize off my labor, they're going to bring my friends with me and then we're all going to fucking get something. This is my band Yawn that I love, Jessica Jeezy in the Shadow. This is, I used to write for the OC Weekly. I used to organize the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls Orange County. Have people heard of the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls organizations? Yes. Really important, powerful work. This is Transgress Fest that I work on with Drew, and then this will be playing with Alice and with Alice Bag. And I see kind of everything that I do as part of this kind of like celebratory world, right? Like, this is like kind of the joke when I sent Rhea my bio as like a rabble-rouser. It's like, I don't know what the fuck I am. It's like, this is what I do. I don't know, I'm doing it all, you know? Like, I'm doing the things that fill me up and the things that take me around people that make me feel like the world can become a better place, right? And by being a fan, by orienting myself in like, I don't know, like, you know, just like loving what people do and sharing my excitement about it, whether it be if I'm on stage knowing that I'm occupying power, right, with Alice, or if I'm booking a fest or if I'm writing an article, I always want to try to use whatever platform that I have to talk about the people that have inspired me to be who I am, right? And that's like part of a citational practice as an academic as well, is to acknowledge we're not creating shit in a vacuum. So this is where I came from. This is, so the kind of way that I became a fan was my best friend in junior high had a computer and I did not. And Sarah Long Googled, like we were both freaks, and she was just like Googling, I don't even know if it was Google in 1998. I don't fucking know what she was doing. Yeah, she was asking Jeeves. And Jeeves told her, wow, you're weird, you're gay, you're probably gonna be into punk. And so this is what I looked like before punk. In 1998, and then here's what I look like shortly after. So yeah, but being a nerd punk freak from Garden Grove made me feel incredibly isolated. And it was through being a fan of punk music that gave me not just a community that I inevitably got, but just the promise of a community beyond my isolation with my best friend, right? So like, I brought the first zine I ever got with me. It's a flip side from 1970 something. It's like an ultimate fanzine. I'm sure people have heard of flip side. And I got this at this record store when I was a kid, and just looking at like, I read this Screamers article, you know, and it's like, wow, there was a community in Southern California of like gay freaks that were like cool and everybody hated them, and they had community and they made things like, so I can survive. I can have that too, right? And so by being a fan, it made me feel less alone, even if it was in a historical continuum, right? Me and Sarah were definitely alone in our junior high. But in our minds, when we went home with VHS tapes, watching all these different films, like The Decline of Western Civilization and stuff, we were not as alone. So why is it that being a fan is not celebrated the same way as being an artist? Does anybody have an idea?
Maybe capitalism?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my lecture notes for sure. But why? What is it about capitalism, do you think?
Well, I think probably a heavy emphasis on the hierarchy you get to participate in. If you sell a thing, then you sell more of it, right?
Totally. exactly it. And like, that there has to be a hierarchy, right? And so like, the reason I bring this up is because I feel like people don't like to identify as like a fan, right? It's like people, I don't know, people just think like that's like a bad word kind of in a way, right? Like, and it's so weird when you think about the kind of culture of fan today, because there's kind of like a commodification of the fan, right? In this kind of world in which there's cons like Comic-Con, all these different things that are like specifically like centered on fandom, but only as fandom in relation to the purchase of an object, right? And so what does it mean to be a fan in an ecosystem that doesn't actually have a capitalist aim, right? So yeah, like, I'm a fan. I've always been a fan. And like, one of the other things about being a fan that is like interesting to think about is that the way that it's been gendered as well. So like, to be a fan, especially if you think of I do history of rock at UCLA. So in the history of rock, so the first fans are like the Beatles fans. And it's like, they're all women, and it's considered like a subordinate position, right? And so what does it mean when you actually find power in being a fan, right? And so to actually subvert that hierarchy that exists because of capital is actually a powerful act. And then to do that and validate people whose work resonates with you for reasons that are political, right? I'm queer, perhaps somebody who's a person of color is resonating with art of a person of color. That is validating to that artist who's creating from the margins, right? It's not for the purpose of making money. So to be a fan in that way is to validate a world. Another thing that's interesting to think about is like the idea that like people create in vacuums, right? Like people don't like to identify as a fan because essentially that means that like you saw somebody else's work and that it maybe it inspired you, right? And like I feel like a lot of the aversion to acknowledging like that I work within this kind of situation is a reflection of this. So objectivity, the idea that people are just not having any opinions on their own, like that things aren't actually influenced by the outside world, is a construct, right? And that's the same kind of construct that keeps us from actually wanting to imagine ourselves in a larger conversation with other people. So I'm going to zoom, because I'm running out of time, to my work with OC Weekly, which was like one of my most, one of my proudest kind of achievements. How many more minutes? 4 minutes? Okay. So when I was at OC Weekly, one of the things that was important to me was creating basically a paper that I would have wanted when I was a kid, and creating the paper that I needed in my mid-20s. And so with Orange County, it's really interesting because people love to hate on Orange County, right? But you know what's so fucking funny? Every city I go to on tour, I meet people from fucking Orange County that go, oh man, it just sucks, there's nothing there. I'm like, really? Have you never heard of Girl Fair? Did you never hear of Coos Cafe? Did you never hear of the Bico movement there? Did you never hear of Soapbox Sessions? Have you never heard of all these things generally led by people of color at the helm, women of color feminists, resisting against the shit that Orange County is known for? No, because you didn't fucking care. You just moved away, and that's fine, I moved away too. But it's complicated, right? And so when I was living in Orange County, and I work here, so it's difficult, I made it my fantasy paper to cover every queer artist, every woman that was doing work in Orange County, and to the point that we started getting people that were buying gay ads, like as if it was a gay paper. And so I was really proud of the things I was able to do, so I covered like all of that. I did the faux pas, right, of like, you can't cover your friend's bands. I was like, I'm only fucking covering my friend's bands. Fuck you. So like, this is a picture in my old house, you know? Popsicle, my friend Josie Rex, great band. Slice, they were a wonderful indie rock band. I was the token queer ska journalist for a moment. Thank you. You know, so like covering ska from a queer angle. I covered Coachella, I did it from a queer punk angle. Like, so I went out of my way to cover, you know, I wrote so many fucking stories. And so every time I'd be on tour and people would say, I don't know about Orange County, it's like, yes, that's real, but also if you just take the time to celebrate the people in your community, it's so life-giving, right? I can't tell you how many times I would have a story in the weekly, and people would come up to me and say, and thank me for making them feel seen. And like in any place, whether it's a big city like Los Angeles or a smaller suburban area like Orange County, that visibility is life-saving to people. And then I started to branch out beyond Orange County, but writing from Orange County and for the OC Weekly still, because there was such a lack of people who are willing to write about DIY critical queer artists. So I was really proud to do that. When the ruling about the gay marriage came down, people were very excited and wanted me to write something, so I said I'm only going to write a listicle of people that you're not supporting in the community. So, yeah, it was really wonderful to be able to do that and to share kind of a different narrative, right, routed through the state. And just understanding when you have a platform and you can share like the kind of work that's powerful to you, that is actually powerful for other people too. And, it's really important to know that like you're not just alone out there, right? My scholarly work focuses on people that I care about. I contribute to Razor Cake. I got an opportunity to write about fatty cakes. Essentially, the short, and then I teach at UCLA, so if any students are here, take my class this summer. I've been invited because of my nerdy fandom. As part of who I am, I was invited to teach a class this summer, and I'm specifically curating zines from the community that are going to be my whole syllabus. So we're going to talk about queer punk as method, right? The idea of being in a creative conversation with people as a positionality, right? That is world making. That creates the world that you want to exist. At Rock and Roll Camp for Girls, the same thing. So anyways, cheering for people has the potential to be a political act. Cheering for people lets them know that you see them, and so many of us feel unseen. The people who've cheered for me have helped keep me alive. And cheering for people can be an act of radical utopian world-making. The world is fucked up, and celebrating the beautiful things, ideas, and people who make it less fucked up makes us all feel less alone. It helps us visualize and materialize the world that we want to build. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. Yeah, just applaud.